It's the merriest time of the year, Christmas, and as the year comes to a close, I'm challenging myself to read 10 books before Christmas. This is my last-ditch effort to add more books read to my Goodreads reading goal, as well as allowing myself to read more books I normally wouldn't pick up. Will any of these 10 books end up on my best books I've read on 2024? Join me as I start this readathon and find out which books I will love and which books I could have gone without reading. Welcome back to all the girlies, gays, and bays out there to another reading vlog. We're actually going to be doing part 2 of a video that you would have seen last week. And if you didn't see last week's video, I am reading 10 books before Christmas. Now these 10 books were recommended to me by my Secret Santa. I'm a part of Sarah Without an H's Patreon, and we're doing a Secret Santa readathon where one of the patrons recommends 10 books to us, and we try to read as many as we can before Christmas. Now, me being who I am, I want to read all of the books on my list. I know that's a tall ask to do, but I am going to give it my best attempt. And actually, I think I'm a bit ahead of the game because I have already read 5 books, which you would have seen in last week's video. So we're going to be reading 5 books for this video, starting with One Dark Window. I know that this is a dark gothic fantasy book. I feel like this is one of the most divisive books because it's in the middle of the road. Either you like it or you hate it. So I'm curious to see where I'll be going with this book. And then I'm going to be reading The Shuddering, which is a horror thriller set in the wintertime with these people getting trapped in a lodge, which is very fitting for December. And then the next book we're going to be reading is Among Thieves, which is a fantasy heist book. I love me some thievery. And then we're going to be reading The Family Game, which is a psychological thriller. And then the last book that we're going to be reading, and the thickest book of this entire challenge, is City of Brass, which is kind of funny because City of Brass is the only book on my recommendations list that I actually own, and it's on my shelf somewhere back there. And since it is the thickest book, we're going to be saving it for last. Today is the 13th. Happy birthday to Taylor Swift. I think I will be able to finish all 5 of these books before Christmas. So let's go ahead and get started. Listen, I know it don't look great right now, but it kind of is what it is. But I have finished reading One Dark Window. I wanted to update you guys a lot earlier, but as I was reading this book, I kept thinking, oh no, I do not like this book. So I decided just to give you the update once I was done with the book. So One Dark Window is following our main character, Elspeth, and in this magical world, children or people can become infected, and when you become infected, it's like the world's way of like giving you magic, I guess is the best way to describe it. But in this world, magic is like a huge no-no. So those that become infected are killed off, they're hunted. Basically, we don't want people to have magic in this world. And the other thing in this world is that there are these 12, I think it's 12, magic cards that have different kinds of powers that people in this world, they want to collect so they could have the ability to use all of the magic cards. So we're following Elspeth, and like I mentioned earlier, she was infected as a child and she survived the infection, and she did gain a magical power, but she has been, avoiding the people that have been hunting down those who have the magical powers or those who have been infected. And to her knowledge, she's the only one that's been infected and like survived the infection. So like it's a big secret within her family. Her mom, I believe, has passed away, and then her dad remarried somebody else. So she's like being taken care of by her aunt and the family. And for some reason, because being infected is like a bad thing and that she survived it, her entire family knows that she survived it. It wasn't making a whole lot of sense. The other thing that was making a whole lot of sense is because once you have magic, it kind of makes you a powerful being or a powerful person, but for some reason this universe wants to get rid of all the people who have magic. Like if I was the king, if I was in charge, I'd be like, yeah, I want all the magical people to work for me so I stay in power and I have all these people that can work for me using their magic. It wasn't making a whole lot of sense. I think I rated this book like 2 stars. My issue with this book is that it read like YA, and then there was a romance thrown in there that I just did not care for. Like all the characters in this book, I was just like, I don't care. The storyline or the premise of this book is just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like they wanted to collect these 12 magic cards so they can like control the mists, because the mists apparently was like causing the infection and they want to get rid of the infection. But again, I'm like, if you have people that have magic, why wouldn't you want them? It wasn't making a whole lot of sense. It wasn't getting. Also with like the collecting of these 12 cards, like what is this? Is this Pokemon? Is it Magic the Gathering? Like what are we doing? This book is billed as a gothic fantasy, but honestly it read more like YA fantasy. And even the magic system, which didn't make any sense to begin with, wasn't utilized well. I just feel like this is a good concept, but the execution was done really bad. Like throughout this book, I was trying so hard not to DNF because this is a readathon challenge and I want to read every single book that is on my list, but I tried really hard not to DNF this one and I didn't DNF it. But could I tell you what happened at the end of this book? No, I could not. I think the other thing that didn't work for me with this book is that the audiobook narrator was not great. Like I wish they had chosen someone that had more of like a deep voice, had like that haunting allure of their voice, but they somehow found this narrator that felt like they could have read or narrated YA books. I think maybe that's why it felt very YA, but also the characters in the book just constantly made dumbass choices. There were so many plot holes that I was finding in this book. I honestly, I think I read that book over the course of 3 or 2 days, but it felt like I'd been reading that book for over a week. So anyway, we need to move on from this book. So I decided to pick up The Shuddering. I don't want to pick up another fantasy, like let's just mix it up a little bit. So The Shuddering, what I read from the little blurb on Goodreads is that we're following a group of friends and siblings that decide to go on a winter vacation out in this lodge. And while they're out there, there are these monsters that is like the horror part of this horror novel. So hard switching gears from the fantasy that I read. Besides what I read on the blurb of Goodreads, I really don't know anything much more like about this book. So let's just get started with it and I hope and pray that I like it. I have not had breakfast yet, so we're gonna sit here and eat this oatmeal together. I'm not gonna show you what the oatmeal looks like because it kind of looks like vomit, but it tastes great, okay? Leave it alone. Also, if you have noticed that I've been wearing the same sweater for the past few clips, also leave it alone. I just want to rot, okay? Also, this lighting is not great, but we're gonna make it work. So let's give you a little bit of a life update because it's been a while since I have done that. I would have mentioned a couple of vlogs back that I moved, and the reason for having to move is that I was living in this apartment totally rent-free. My dad worked at this apartment complex in maintenance, so he was given an apartment to like live in case he had to like work emergencies. It was a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment. It was a nice place. I really liked it. So when I broke up with my boyfriend earlier this year, he was like, just move into the apartment, it's rent-free, like this would work out for you, and it did. But unfortunately, he got fired from his job for drinking and driving. Yes, my dad did do that back in September. So because he got fired from his job, I had to move out of the apartment. Like literally, I did nothing wrong. So I ended up moving back into my parents' house because it was such short notice that I had to move that I didn't have time to like find an apartment or anyone else to live. So I was just like, let me just move into my parents' house, get everything figured out. So it's December now and I moved into my parents' house at the beginning of October. And at first when I moved in, I was going to get an apartment and I was like looking for an apartment. And I was thinking maybe my sister and I could get an apartment together because she had just divorced her husband. And she was also living at my parents' house, and like she still is. So we're thinking maybe we could get an apartment together, but then she has a cat. I'm gonna show you the cat in a second because she's staring me down. So this is my sister's cat. She just likes staring out the window. At first I was nervous because I thought I was allergic to cats, quite honestly. My ex-boyfriend, a couple times a year we would babysit this woman's like 5 cats, and every time I would go over to this lady's house, my eyes like would immediately start watering. I would start sneezing, my throat got dry and itchy, and I thought I was allergic to cats. So when I moved into my parents' house, I was like, oh my god, this is not gonna work out for me. At first when I moved into my parents' house, I was really nervous because I thought I was just gonna have allergic reactions to this cat. But since I've been here and it's December now, I have had no allergic reactions to the cat. I guess the most difficult thing with the cat is like my dog and the cat, it took some time for them to decide to get along. I mean, they get along fine now. So getting the apartment with my sister did not work out because she apparently doesn't have the funds to pay rent like that. So I decided to then go down the route of buying a house. So I found a realtor, really liked him, got approved for a loan, started looking at a bunch of houses, and I had put in an offer into one house that was like 15 minutes away from where my parents live, and offer got accepted. And when we did the inspection, it turned out that this house had a huge wood rotting problem on its main floor. Like that entire thing would have to be ripped out. It would be huge construction. It would be a huge cost, that I decided to back out of that contract and not even buy this house. So I started from scratch. And then I found this other townhouse. It was really cute. It was 2 bedrooms, only 1 bathroom, and it was like on the 2nd level. I put in an offer, got accepted. We did the inspection. The inspection looked great, and I was going to get this house. And then a couple weeks after getting the offer and doing the inspection, my dog started having some like weird breathing problems. And at first I thought it was kennel cough because she had just gone to get groomed the week prior, and I legit thought it was kennel cough, but it just kept persisting. So I took her into the vet just to be sure, because my dog was born with a heart murmur. So I just wanted to be safe. And when I took her in, she got diagnosed with congestive heart failure, and I took her into a specialist like vet hospital to see an actual cardiologist, and they did some scans on her heart and on her lungs, and they determined that she probably has 1 year left to live. So what we're doing right now is that we're managing her heart failure with 4 different medications, and she seems to be doing great right now. Like, she's back to normal, she's eating, she's happy, she's a happy dog, but it is a progressive illness. So I'm just preparing for the eventuality that in a year or so that she might no longer be with us. And because she had gotten diagnosed with heart failure, and I was looking into the cost of like, because she has to have her blood work done every 6 months, but right now we're starting off with every month just to make sure that her medication is working, or she doesn't need her medication adjusted. And then the medication itself, because she's on 4 different medication, costs like $400 a month, that I decided like, let's not purchase this house anymore. So I backed out of that contract. And you know what? I don't even feel bad, because like, I would do anything for my dog. And also the townhouse that I found, I wasn't particularly excited about. Like, it was fine. It was on the 2nd floor, so I would have to be going up and downstairs with like groceries, take my dog out to pee. It doesn't have a backyard. It was like apartment living, but it was like a townhouse, and I wasn't like excited about it. Like, if I was gonna buy a house, like I wanted to buy a house with like that's fully detached and has a backyard, so I let my dog out and have it like backyard fully fenced, and I can just like let my dog out and not worry about her. But because that wasn't the case, I decided to back out of this contract. So I'm just gonna be living with my parents until my dog does end up passing away, because then at that point I would look into getting an apartment, and I would not get another dog. So it just like is the way that it is. So this is why my content looks a little bit different, and this is just being completely honest and giving you guys all the tea and what's been going on in my life. I'm gonna go ahead and try to finish the rest of my breakfast. I finished reading The Shuddering. I'm gonna give it 3 stars, and I also realized that I haven't told you anything about what this book is about. So we're following 5 friends. Actually, 2 of them are siblings, twins. So we have Ryan and Jane, and those are the twins. And their dad owns this cabin out in the woods of Colorado, and this is at the winter time. Ryan loves to snowboard. He's like made that a career for himself. And then Jane is a school teacher, and so Ryan wants his last hurrah to get his friends together and his sister to come spend like 4 days out in this cabin out in the woods, because his dad is selling that cabin. So he invites his friend Sawyer, and then Sawyer's girlfriend April comes along, and then Jane invites her friend Lauren. And right off at the beginning of the book, these characters are just so unlikable, because as Jane, Lauren, and Ryan are driving up to this cabin, the writer writes that Ryan likes to do things while he's driving to scare the girls, or like evoke a response from them, like whether that be like hitting the brakes really hard or making a really tight turn on the road. And he's like, oh, I get a rise out of that. And immediately I was like, I do not like this man. And then once they get to the cabin, Ryan is like, oh, I have a little crush on Lauren. He's like, she's so hot. And I don't like it when like male characters in books describe or discuss women that way based on like how attractive they are. Ryan was giving asshole right off the bat. We have Sawyer who showed up with his girlfriend April, and Sawyer is also giving that like dude bro vibes. But then we meet April and she's like not like the other girls. She's like, I'm not preppy, I'm cool. He's his manic pixie dream girl. And throughout like the first couple days when they're at this cabin, we are introduced to like Jane as being kind of like this maternal figure. She's a teacher, she cooks for everybody. We have Lauren, who's like big goal during this trip is to basically like get with Ryan, and same for Ryan. He has a crush on Lauren. He's just like, I finally met the perfect girl for me. And I'm like, you've known this girl for like 2 days. We have Sawyer and April who have a pretty toxic relationship. Sawyer used to date Jane and like they were in love, and this book is kind of giving like cheating vibes between Jane and Sawyer. There was this one night that April and Sawyer like started to, you know, boink each other, and April made the comment, he's like, you'd rather be with her, you'd rather be doing this with her. And Sawyer, in his like thought process, he was like, yeah, I kind of want to, you know, find the thrill out of all of like going to see Jane in like the study or the living room and like hitting that. And it was kind of gross. And then April was just so insecure. I mean, for good reason, but she was also very toxic. Like there was this one point she's like, I want to leave, I don't want to come back here. It's like, let's get in this car, Sawyer, and drive me home. And Sawyer's like, it's snowing, there's like literally a foot of snow outside, we're like buried in. She's like, I don't care, get in the car and drive. And he like wrecks his Jeep for her in order to like try to get her out of there as like a show of love or whatever. This is where I'm gonna get into some spoilers, so spoiler tag for you guys. So we find out that Sawyer and April are engaged, and the only reason he proposed to her is because she's pregnant. And I hate that as a plot device. Like I just don't like kids in general, so I don't like using pregnancy as a plot device for like two couples to stay together. And April gets so upset and so jealous over Jane that she decides to like leave, and she's just gonna walk back into town in the middle of winter while it's snowing. But this book is a horror novel, by the way. I know that didn't make it seem like there's any horror to be had here, but there are these monsters out in the woods that at the very beginning of the book they thought, or they, you know, assumed that there were probably like elk out there in the woods in the winter time, but no, they're like these literal monsters. There's also this dog that belongs to Ryan called Una that he brought along, and the entire time Ryan toured this dog, he was kind of like, so she's outside, so she'll freeze, whatever. And then Jane the entire time was like, bring her inside, let's take care of Una, we gotta feed Una. And Ryan's kind of like, what is with the dog? Like, I hate Ryan. Slowly and surely, everybody starts getting picked apart when April decides to make her little trek back into the town wearing her like designer coat. April is just getting, I think she was trying to give like, I'm not like the other girls, but she really like wanted to be like the other girls. So she makes her little trek into town, and Lauren's like, we can't leave her out there in the cold, she'll freeze. And then Ryan is like, I'll go find her. And then Lauren's like, no, I'll go with you, Ryan. Ew. By the way, while they're out there, they get attacked by the monsters. So Lauren dies, and Ryan comes running back into the cabin. He's like, oh my god, you won't believe what just happened, oh my god. And like everybody starts panicking and freaking out at this point. And so it's like, I gotta go out there, I gotta find April, she's carrying my child, man, blah blah blah. And the way that the people in this book are lacking any kind of common sense, like they're like just driven by emotion. That's what made me really frustrated about this book, because I'm like, if y'all would sit and think logically for a little bit, you know, that would take you a far way. Now that they believe that the monster is real, they have to start to devise a plan on how to get out of here. So they decide that they're gonna walk like 5 miles to where like the highway is. And so they like start packing up their food, their supplies, and they realize that the fire scares the monsters off. And at this point, April, we presume, is dead. Lauren is definitely dead because we saw her get ripped apart. So it's just Ryan, Sawyer, and Jane now. So as they're like packing to leave and get out, Sawyer is attacked by one of the monsters that like fucks up his back. So they put him on like a makeshift gurney so that they can haul him into town that way. He's still alive, but he's like severely injured. They have also managed to kill one of the monsters at this point. So they, without any knowledge that this would work, whatever, they like dump the monster's blood over themselves, like thinking that that smell would mask their human scent to the other monsters. But they're like slowly trekking and making their way into like to the highway and they get attacked by a bunch of the monsters one night, but they fight them off again using the fire and a gun that they found at the cabin. They make a little makeshift like hut so they could like camp out overnight, and Sawyer succumbs to his injuries and he dies, which throughout this entire book the men were so rancid. Like all these characters were incredibly unlikable that I was just kind of like, if the monsters get them, I'm not gonna mind it. So like at this point April was annoying, she's dead. Lauren's only point in this book was to try to get Ryan, and she obviously died. And then Sawyer also dies. He just was like not thinking logically throughout this entire book, and when he died I was like, whatever. So then we only have the twins left, Jane and Ryan, and they make it to the highway and they're like, where are all the cars? And Jane's like, maybe the highway patrol shut down the highway because of the snowstorm. And Ryan's like, no, a car has to come. A car has to come. They've also realized that the monsters don't like being in direct sunlight. So as they're like on the highway waiting for like a car to come by, the sun is slowly setting and they could see the monsters like by the tree line, and they're like, we're gonna get got. So Ryan just kind of like does his last hurrah and runs out to fight all of the monsters, and he just like leaves Jane there, and Jane is like too shocked and like bewildered that now she's like totally all alone, that she's like catatonic. That is right when a car comes by, and one of the guys in the car is like, oh my god, there's this girl covered in blood, we should help her out. And he gets her into the car, but she's so catatonic that she can't like tell them what just happened to her. And the people in the car, there's like 4 of them, they're like, yeah, I'm so excited to go out to the mountains and snowboard, it's gonna be so much fun, yeah, we have our cabin out in the woods. And one of the girls like, shouldn't we take her into town and like get her help and go to the hospital? And one of the other girls like, oh no, the cabin's much closer, like we can help her out there. And this entire time I was just like, if Jane could just open up her mouth and like think logically. I mean, yes, she just saw her friends and her brother like die, but if she could just speak logically and tell them, no, you don't want to go down there into your cabin, like I just came back from there, not a good place to be, then she probably would have lived. But also I didn't really care for Jane because she actually was cheating with Sawyer while April was in the cabin. Like it was giving cheating. Like all the people in this book were kind of rancid, and I was team monster. Get them, kill them, because I don't care. These people are terrible. So yeah, that is the entire plot synopsis of this book. I think I'm gonna start Among Thieves next because enough space or time has gone by between reading One Dark Window, which was like a fantasy, whatever the fuck that book was, and The Shuddering. Now that I finished it, I think I could head back into another fantasy. So I hope Among Thieves is just like what the title says. I hope it's about thievery and heist, because I typically like those kinds of fantasies. And also, I swear, I'm gonna go take a shower now. I need a shower. I need to stop rotting. And I promise you, the next time you see me in an update clip, I will not be wearing a sweater. Thank you. Coming at you once again with terrible lighting, but I started Among Thieves last night. I'm a couple chapters in, and I think what this story is going to be about is going to be following a group of thieves as they pull off a heist. So far we've been introduced to Raya, Tristan, and Nash, I think that their names are, and we're being told that they all work for this like crime boss lord. At least that's what I think it is. I've only made it like 30 minutes into the book, and I am operating with a little bit of a migraine today. My dog's making a ton of noise. I just gave her a treat, so she's playing with that. Also, I'm just not particularly excited for Christmas. Actually, let's go downstairs and I can show you our flimsy Christmas tree and the small bit of decorations that my mom attempted to put up. So this is where we're going to be celebrating Christmas this year, in my basement, or my parents' basement, because apparently, according to my sister, the cat will jump on the tree, so we have to keep it downstairs in the basement. I know the lighting is super bad down here, but just focus on this skinny ass tree that we have here. This is a store-bought plastic tree that my mom set up for the family because we're not big on Christmas around here. Just another view of the tree, but also we have a little Santa's Village happening down here. My mom set all of this up. It looks like we have a little carousel. She put the word joy here. We've got a little house, or a couple of little houses. And then there are some trees, and then I think that's a nutcracker. Anyway, that is the extent of our Christmas decorating. We're not big on Christmas here. I just feel like because we're all adults, we're just kind of like meh about Christmas. My sister and her husband and her kids are coming to visit from Texas. So at least there'll be a little bit of Christmas around here for the kids, but not so much. Hi, I am gonna attempt to make some chocolate chip pancakes for myself this morning. However, I did wake up with a migraine, so I will not be turning on the light, even though the lighting is really bad in here. I'll be making my best attempt. Just made the batter. Sorry, I didn't show any of you guys how to do that, but I'm gonna make some chocolate chip pancakes. You see some chocolate chip in there. So let me get my frying pan, and then we can get to frying, and then I'll have some breakfast. Okay, I finished making these pancakes, and I don't know why I made them so big. They're like literally the size of my hand. Anyways, back to Among Thieves. I do not actually remember where I left off updating you guys, but this book is following 5 or 6 thieves. I finished the book, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that. Let me just go over the characters really quickly. We have Raya, and she's kind of like a hired killer. And then we have Nash, and she's a smuggler. Then we have Tristan, who is like a con man. And then we have Ivan, who is like the master of disguise. And then we have Evelyn, who is a disgraced cop or a soldier, I would say. This world is set in kind of like a fantasy era where there's like kings and queens. Am I forgetting one of the characters? I feel like I'm forgetting someone, but whatever. So this book is set in a fantasy world where there's like kings and queens, and then they have these special people who are called the Adept. So they have magical abilities. Kind of think of them as people who can move things with their minds. So at the very beginning of the book, we're told that Raya is an adept, but she has somehow escaped the guild who at birth will take all the adepts and train them up on this island to be sold off to lords and kings and to like other rich people. Throughout time, they have been able to make the adepts, who you would think would be really like powerful slaves, and have been able to like wipe their minds. They have zero free thinking. Whatever you as a master want the adept to do, they will do it for you. And it is believed that there is some kind of like magical thing behind how regular humans can control the adept. But our 5 bands of heroes, they work for this like crime lord. His name is Callum Clem, and at the beginning of the book they are told that this like heist is gonna happen, and it's gonna pay them like $500,000 like dollars, or the currency that they use in their world. So they're like, yes, we will take this job, and this job is to steal a quill from a guildmaster. Now, a guildmaster is like a very powerful adept. He's like the head honcho of all of the adepts, and he like managed everything from this one island. But also our band of crew and their leader Callum Clem have like a rival thief crew. I think they're called the Harpies. I don't remember, but there's this rival crew. But our crew, we get the job, and they go on this heist. I think the first like 125, 150 pages was very slow. Like it was just giving you a bunch of information that you're just expected to remember. Like it introduced these characters pretty much like all in one go, and I was having a hard time following like who was like the con man, who was the smuggler, what have you, but I was able to like kind of keep up and keep track. But once they actually start sailing to the island where the guildmaster is, that's when the book really took off. I love me a good heist book. The other thing that I love about this book is that we have Raya, who is secretly an adept, and we have Evelyn, who is a cop or like a disgraced soldier, who I could just tell that they're developing a romance, and I love it. Their romance mimics everything that I like about the romance between Vi and Caitlin from Arcane.
You know what your problem is?
Please, tell me.
You expect everyone to give you what you want. If you really want people to talk to you, you have to let them think you have what they want.
And what do I have?
You're hot, Cupcake. So what'll it be, man or woman?
If you have not watched Arcane, you need to go and watch that series. I have fallen so deep into that series. I love it. I just have not been able to find another book that makes me feel the way that Arcane feels. I think Mistborn comes close, but it's not the same. Like, I want to find another steampunk type series that has a complex sibling or friendship rivalry with magic thrown in there and a great romance. Like, I just have not been able to find it, and this book doesn't come close. But the one thing that I liked about it was that relationship between Raya, and Evelyn. I thought this book was going to be like a 3-star book, but once I finished it, I think it's more like a 4-star book. I really liked it. I just can't get over how slow it was in the first half. And I have read a lot of books in this challenge that are series, and this is one series that I think I'm going to continue, partly because as of right now I know that it's a duology. Series that I will not be continuing is An Ember on the Ashes. Will not be continuing that. I will be continuing the Girl Meets Duke series, which is by Tessa Dare, and I think there was another series that I started that I wasn't going to continue. But I'm so glad that I read Among Thieves. Like, I was loving it. Like I said, it was a good mix between like a little bit of arcane, but also was reminding me a lot of the Rhaenyra Revelations, which is written by Michael J. Sullivan, I think it is. So if you want to read something that's like light on fantasy and it will introduce you to fantasy, I recommend Among Thieves. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to switch gears again and I'm going to read The Family Game. I only have 2 books left to read for this challenge. So The Family Game, which is a psychological thriller, and then City of Brass, which is a fantasy series. When I read the little blurb on Goodreads for City of Brass, it kind of reminded me a lot of Aladdin. So let's get started on The Family Game. I think the audiobook, if I listen to it at 2 times speed, is gonna be like 5.5 hours long. So I'll start it today. I probably won't finish it today. I'm back and I took a shower twice in one video. That is literally unheard of for me. Also, don't pay attention to that brown bag over there. It's just chips. Don't look at it. So I started The Family Game last night by, is it Catherine Stedman? Unsure. This is a psychological thriller. So we are following our main character, Harriet, which, by the way, let me start. There are some names in books that I feel like just shouldn't be reused. Harriet is one of them because Harriet is the name of one of my least favorite characters of all time. The Harriet from The Happy Place. Absolutely hate that book. So the fact that the main character in this book is named Harriet, it's kind of triggering to me. Another name that you just absolutely cannot use in a book for me is Violet or Vi, because no one's going to compare to my Vi. Anyways, back to business. So Harriet is dating this man named Edward. Edward is part of this generational wealth family. Think of the Rockefellers, think of the Kennedys. So Edward and Harriet have been dating for a year, and he takes her skating and he proposes to her and asks her to marry him, and she says yes. But the thing is that she has never met anyone in his family before, so she just agreed to marry a man where she like only knows him, because that right there is messy. I don't know why I'm holding this, because there is no way that I would marry a man whose family I've never met before. Like, this giving sketch. Harriet is an author and she's struggling to finish writing a book, and she's like past due on her deadlines, and Harriet got tricked into coming to Thanksgiving dinner with Edward's family because Edward's family apparently owns the publishing company that publishes Harriet's book. So they go to Thanksgiving dinner where she meets all of his family. It's like so many of them, I can't keep track. But she meets Edward's dad, Robert, who she immediately starts crushing on. And she's like, why am I so attracted to this older man? It's wrong. This is Edward's dad. And gross. But then everyone else in this family is giving rich white privilege. The other thing that we learn about this family is that Edward had a brother named Bobby who died. So Bobby was the firstborn. Edward is the secondborn, but with Bobby dead, Edward becomes like the family heir. I mean, this is not Kings and Queens time, but apparently in these old generational family wealth, the firstborn is highly important and will inherit a lot. So there's this huge mystery surrounding Bobby's death, and Edward's father gives Harriet this tape, and Harriet listens to the tape one day, and on the tape this is Robert like confessing to the death of Bobby and confessing to the death of a couple other women. So Harriet is now on this journey to prove if these murders are actually like real and that Robert actually killed these people, or if she's being fucked with. This family is giving off weird, it's giving off cultish, because there was this one night, and this is spoilers here, there's this one night where they all come together to this thing called Krampus Snouts or something like that, where it's kind of like a game of hide and seek in the dark where they're expected to find this evergreen or this stick, but the Krampus is out to get them. Just think of it as like hide and seek where you don't want to be like tagged or found. They're trying to not get caught by the Krampus, and in order to end the game, they have to find the evergreen stick and shout evergreen, and then the winner gets a prize. Now, thing is that Harriet was also tricked into joining this game. She's also pregnant at this point. She's very early on in her pregnancy, but she was tricked into joining this game, but she's not told like how to play or anything. She's very much in the dark, and while they're like searching for their evergreen, they're in the dark, and only like children play, and then the newest member of the family, which would be Harriet, plays. And this family is so rich that they hire some guy to wear this monster costume, but Harriet doesn't know that, so she's like freaking out. And then one of the little kids gets so scared that like the kid pees on her, and she is just like, what the fuck is going on? This is a strange game. This could be dangerous. But she does end up getting evergreen, and she does win. And everyone in the family's like, oh my God, we're so proud of you that you did it. You won. And she's pissed because she's like, why didn't anyone tell me the rules of the game? Why am I playing this game blind? Didn't know that there was going to be like an actual Krampus or person in a costume that scared the living Jesus out of her. And she's pissed. So she goes to Edward, and Edward's like, well, that's the whole point of the game. You're not supposed to know what the rules are. You're just supposed to play. It's about team building. And he literally just gaslights her to hell and back because he's like, this is how we induct new members into the family. I do not like Edward. I do not like his family. It's giving rich white privilege. Also, an even bigger spoiler is that I think that I figured out what the twist of this book is going to be, because as Harriet's investigating the murders that Robert has confessed to on these tapes, she meets this one woman who's like a lead or like an eyewitness to one of the murders or knows something about it. That woman tells her, you know, this family's weird, they like to play games, they're very cruel. And I think the twist is that these tapes is a game. Like, this is the family fucking with her, and at the end they're gonna be like, oh my God, you figured it out, what a fun game, isn't it? But like, Harriet actually thinks these murders are real, and she's making some very dumb decisions. I don't know, I just don't want to read a book about where the men are toxic and she has like a crush on the dad. I'm not loving it so far, and I think I've already predicted the twist, but we'll just keep reading and I'll update you once I'm done with the book. It's been a couple days since I have finished the family game, and unfortunately I did not like the family game. I thought there was going to be this whole twist and play on the name family game. Like, remember how I was mentioning before in my previous clip how they had this Krampus Snacks game that it's kind of like a trick by this family, and I was thinking that because our main character was getting this recordings from the dad, her name's Harriet, was getting recordings from Edward, her fiance's dad, that recording was just going to be a huge game at the end. Well, let me tell you, and I'm spoilers, when Harriet starts getting these tapes from the dad, I couldn't for the life of me figure out why she wasn't listening to the recording all the way through. Like, she was listening it to like piecemeal and then going out to kind of like connect the clues and kind of put that together. And I just, for some reason, I was like, why are we doing this, Carly? I don't understand. But I was like, okay, whatever, we're here for the thrill of it. I thought it was gonna be this huge twist. I thought it was gonna be a play on the title of the book, but no, it is your typical ending of a thriller book. The husband did it. So her husband, Edward, is the killer or is the murderer, because as I was telling you guys earlier, on these tapes, you're hearing, or like Harry is assuming that Robert is confessing to the murder. But actually, he's trying to tell her low key that Edward was actually the murderer. So like, it's just, I thought this was going to be a psychological thriller. I thought there was going to having a lot going on here, but no, it was literally the husband that did it. So I, quite frankly, did not enjoy this one. I think I'm going to give it like 2 stars. The twist was just, it wasn't even a twist. That is a twist that happens in many of books. So this was just something that I did not enjoy, unfortunately. So I have since moved on to reading the last book. Oh my God, the last book on this challenge, which is City of Brass. I am really enjoying this book so far. I'm a third of the, no, I'm halfway into this book. I read a whole bunch of this yesterday. So we are following our main character, Nari, and she is kind of like a street urchin, kind of like a thief. She doesn't have any parents. She's unsure who her like mom and dad are, but from the very beginning we're told that she has the ability to detect like illnesses or disease in someone. So she kind of used this power, this ability to scam others. So at the very beginning of this book, she performs kind of with this, it's kind of like a healing song over this child that is believed to have been inhabited by a spirit. But Nari is very much like, you know, I'm just gonna play my part here, get paid, get my money, and then leave. But it turns out this child was actually inhabited by an evil spirit, and the song that she sung called an ancient like being, she keeps calling him a djinn, but he's like this ancient warrior that is like now her protector. And this ancient warrior immediately identifies her as a part of this ancient, like very powerful race. And because she called upon this guy, his name is called Deva, and he's being referred to as like a djinn, but he doesn't like being called that. And he's like, we gotta get you to the city of Devabad because that's where a lot of the magical beings in your world are, and there will keep you safe. So they go on this kind of like traveling part of the story to get to the city of Brass or Devabad. But on their way there, they're attacked by many of like the spirits or like magical animals even. And then we have another split focus, another character that's introduced into his perspective. So his name is Ali, and he is the prince of Devabad. Something you know about this book is that there are different like sects or races of people that are being treated differently. Like there are some people that's kind of like called the half-bloods, that's called the Safrit, that is treated very poorly. Everybody wants to treat the pure bloods well, and the pure bloods are what is in charge. But Ali, he has like a tender spot for the Safri and like the downtrodden, and he's trying to help these people. But his dad, as the king, he's like, it's time for you to do your part in my kingdom and help me, you know, rule and make sure that the Safri and the people that we consider lower class are being monitored. And what we're kind of on the down low told that Nari's protector Deva, he has some part to do with like a really ancient war that brought Ali and his family into power. It's not really clear to me. Like while reading this book, I really wish I had like a cheat sheet of all of like the races and kind of like a timeline of the history of this war, so I could kind of like piece it together. But it's coming and being piecemeal to us just like very slowly in the book, which is fine because I'm really enjoying this. I mean, we have a traveling story, which I love. We have a tortured hero, Deva, which I love. We have Nari, who has some mysterious background. And then we have Ali. Honestly, whenever we switch to Ali's perspective, I'm just kind of like, meh, he's just man. But I'm actually really enjoying this book so far. And like I said, I'm halfway through and I've only been reading it for a couple of days. So I'll probably finish this in the next couple of days. But this was just like an update for you guys to see how far I'm into in this book. I am going to be giving you this update looking like the ugliest version of myself because it's been a couple days and I have not showered. I did, however, finish City of Brass last night. And I'm going to give it 4 stars. At the halfway point of this book, I was really enjoying it and thinking that this was going to be like a 5-star book because we were having the traveling story with Nari and Deva trying to get to Devabad. And I really enjoyed it because it was like very fast paced. We were getting to point A to point B and things were happening and things were being revealed. But once they got to Devabad, that's when the story slowed down and felt very much like your typical YA story that once the girl gets to meet like the prince and the king, her entire like personality flips. As she was in the city of Devabad, she starts to develop like a romance between the second born Prince Ali. And Prince Ali was a character that whenever we read from his chapters perspective, I was kind of like, do I even like this man? I don't know. Ali was giving young and naive, and then his brother Mutadir was very much giving like, I will be an evil dictator when I become king one day. And then as we are in the city of Brass or Devabad, the political maneuverings or the political dealings were being revealed to us, but I had a hard time keeping track of like the different kind of races or the different kind of sects of people are like, who was in charge, like who are we putting down. It was just like very confusing to me. And then also Nari didn't have a lot to do when she was in the city of Devabad. Like as we were traveling there, you could tell like she was definitely a character to root for, someone who's tough, someone who has goals. But when she was in the city, it was like she was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm weak. I am unsure of my powers and my abilities. She really like second guessed herself a lot, and I didn't particularly enjoy that. As we got to like the last 1/4 of the book, things did just start to pick up again, and there were some stuff that were revealed and some stuff that like happened that I was like, how did we end up here? And spoilers, this is gonna be huge spoilers. Deva ended up dying, I think. And when that happened, I was really disappointed because he was a character that I was rooting for, even though he did develop kind of a love triangle between like Deva, Nari, and Ali. Didn't love the love triangle. And it also felt like Deva did a complete like 180 on his personality trying to protect Nari, and I was like, this place is bad, we gotta leave. But when he did end up dying, I was like, you just killed off my favorite character. Why do I want to keep reading? And even bigger spoiler, towards the end we kind of got the hinting that Nari's mother, Minaiza, might actually still be alive, because there was some like timeline or stuff within this book that didn't just quite line up. So I think I'm gonna end up giving it 4 stars, and this is one of the books that were recommended to me that were in a series that I actually want to continue. I'll put it on the screen here, all the books that were series in this Secret Santa recommendation, and then also I'll flip to all the series that I will be continuing. I know I want to continue with the Daevabad trilogy and Among Thieves, since I think that that's a duology. I will not be continuing with the One Dark Window series. I did not like that book. That was the one book that I tried so hard not to DNF. I didn't care for that book. I will not be continuing with An Ember in the Ashes. I also did not care for that book. I did enjoy Two for Tea, and that's in the Cambric Creek series, and I would continue along with that. And then the Duchess Deal, that is the Girl Meets Duke series by Tessa Derrick. Will definitely be continuing along with that. Love, love, love that. And then To Ravish a Rogue, even though I thought that book was kind of like silly, but it was a good time, good vibes, I will be continuing along with that series. If I'm looking to read like monster romance, that series, I don't know what it's called, but in that series I will continue on with that. And then Chastely Bitten is also a series, and I will not be continuing on with that. That's a nerve from me. So that is it. I hope you enjoyed watching this little Secret Santa Christmas vlog during the holidays. If you like this video, please give it a like, please subscribe, please comment below, and I will see you guys in another video next week. Bye bye.